Let's get rolling. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Glad to have you here. My name's Colin Fair. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Behavioral Sciences at UAGC, and I'll be serving as a co-chair with my maverick, Dan Augusto, also a faculty member in the Department of Behavioral Sciences. Excited to get this session going. Encourage everybody to engage in the chat and share what's going on and how great a day you've been having. I know Leroy likes to see that stuff. And we're excited to welcome you to this presentation. So Dr. Leroy Simpson, he's an assistant professor in the psychology program at UAGC. He's an industrial organizational psychologist specializing in practical, applied, and personnel psychology with expertise in research, statistics, and analytics. I'm going to talk to you today about the culture of care from the perspective of industrial and organizational psychology. So we'll turn it over to you, Dr. Simpson.
Thank you, Dr. Fair. I appreciate it. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And I entitled my presentation what's called the UAGC Workplace. And before we start our session, I want to open up with a little story of an experience I had at UAGC. So as kind of a newly minted professor, getting used to the culture of working online, I missed a meeting that was important. And my chair gave me a message and, asked if, I was okay, are you able to make the meeting? And to tell you the truth, I had something to happen. And the first thing that went through my mind was that, am I going to get written up? Am I going to have a performance evaluation? Is this another kind of numbers thing where you just don't miss meetings? And basically, I felt industrialized. So when I had a meeting with the assistant dean who's here, what I was expecting was to be scolded about missing meetings and policy, and it's integral that your presence is there. I almost felt, like I said, I'm going to use the word industrialized again. And I am proud to say that I could not have been more wrong. I say that because UAGC's culture was into play, and it was more care about my life, my health, and my welfare. And I was completely surprised because I was bracing myself for, I guess, quote unquote, a good workforce talking to. And it gave me the motivation to put together this, because I think that in higher education, the workplace is really overlooked because we're always serving students, we're always teaching, but we have hearts and lungs too. And we also have stressors, and we also have personalities, and we also work and earn to make a living, but that's not overlooked here. And that is why I really, really love putting together this for you all for the culture of care. And it's good to understand that the workplace is critical, especially by being online and remote. And this is how we do it from my view as an industrial organizational psychologist. So I want you to write down or think of three theories, which is part of workplace motivation, is Herzberg, Maslow, and McClellan. I'm going to say it again: Herzberg's theory, Maslow's theory, and McClellan's theory. All of those point to workplace motivation, and we'll get to that later. So as an IO psychologist, what I like to do is study organizations and their mission, vision, and values, their hygiene factors, which are policies and procedures, as well as the consequences of not following those, but also factors of workplace motivation, training, learning, and coaching, and group dynamics and development. So the culture of care mission statement from UAGC is that it aims to foster a community grounded in trust and belonging. And the mission is to create a transformative experience to where individuals can thrive academically, professionally, and personally. So as an IO, I would do two things. Number one would be to recognize trust. Again, every organization, including the ones in higher education, will tote trust as, oh, we trust you to do your job. Oh, we trust you to perform well. Oh, we have an absolute a trust to help you to be your best. And really, to be transparent, I think most of those are a bunch of like lip service to sell you on adding another human capital asset to its workforce. Because most organizations, in my observation, I mean, they are economical and revenue driven. And looking at the higher education organizations, how many students can we get in and get out? How much of those tuition dollars can we get in those research dollars? So it's all about money. And UAGC is a state-run enterprise in higher education, but inside it does not function culturally as one, as the culture of care is put forth in everything that staff, faculty, and even students produce. So I recognize trust as a pivotal element of organizational culture. And a culture grounded in trust tends to encourage open communication and foster employee loyalty with also employee engagement and experiences. And it promotes a sense of psychological safety where individuals feel comfortable in taking risks and expressing innovative ideas. Basically, what that translates to is that we can go as far as we need to go without the restraints of leadership, management, or consequential or repercussion type impact, as long as it's within making our students and each other better. And I also view UAGC with the mission and vision. Mission statement, excuse me, is the ability to thrive is being supported by fulfilling basic psychological needs. That's where Maslow's comes in. Competence, autonomy, relatedness. We have inner human needs that are readily recognized by our university, more than I could even ever imagine, because it really puts the humanistic elements first. And it recognizes that putting those humanistic elements first now gives precedence to engaging those tuition dollars by increasing our stakeholder engagement and making students feel welcome because we feel welcome. And it just rolls down as a downstream type of engagement. Next, please. So, in knowing this and looking at how our culture of care is on the industrial and organizational side, we want to get to know what kind of culture we give in, because again, what I am very, very proud of is that we live this culture. It's not just a marketing gimmick. It's not just a talking point for a recruiter to get the very best professors over here, but it's more or less, or more of, involving professional educators to come to a place where they themselves can not only develop intrapersonally, but interpersonally amongst ourselves. So in my review of the mission is the things that are more evident that I see and observe is, one, we talk and listen. We're just like friends here. We talk and we listen, we engage each other, we listen, we even correct each other, but that correction is a positive love. Like, I don't want to see you fail. That's why I want to engage you and connect with you. We also are fair and include everyone. I've never been a part of a UAGC conversation in meeting, in training, or even in one-on-one engagements where there was not any inclusiveness. But again, it's not just a selling point. And I want to reiterate that. And I think with my kind of enterprising brain, again, it's always about, your average is always about salesmanship and marketing and reinforcement. We got to sell. And I'm pushing this from a business standpoint because it's really critically important that we understand that we are moving forward and being all inclusive. Basically, we all have the same importance, and our leadership realizes this the most. Everyone gets to join in, everyone gets the fairest of treatment, and everyone gets to be heard. And finally, we help and encourage based off of culture care. And this is my favorite. Personally, I've experienced, and this is from leaders actually, that I've just had these experiences to where there's encouragement. There's not the opposite of, okay, I'm worried about him, he's not going to perform well, or he can't do the job, and we may have to talk about this in his next performance review. I don't get that. What I get is, you know what, I want to see Leroy succeed. I want to see him do his best. I want to see him grow in our organization. He is a part of our organization, and I need to do everything that I can to help him, and I want him to know I'm there for him. And that's what I got from my leadership. hopefully we do have the same sentiment, but that experience boosters my employee experience, because I can honestly say to someone else who may be looking for a job here or looking to go in a role here that, you know what you see is what you get. You really will be cared for, and there really is a true culture of care at UAGC. Next slide, please. Excuse me. So, applying IO psychology principles. These are the briefs and roles, and I'll go over this very brief. So, I looked at the 3 most critical roles in the organization, with staff and leadership combined, but there are 3 that I observed, which are faculty, which we are the product managers of the UAGC organization. We deliver the product paid for by the student stakeholders and curriculum and instruction. So that's where your industrial part comes from, because what we do is that we push out a product that stakeholders pay for in their tuition dollars, and we ensure that product has the best quality, has the best output, and which are results, and that has the best outcome. And that is paramount because that's what keeps students coming back to us. And the culture of care reinforces faculty because we're cared for, therefore we're able to put out a great product for not only students to enjoy, but ourselves to even enjoy as well. The staff and the leadership are the operational support roles that ensure the product is delivered with quality and the business structure system fluid to support that delivery. There are our career advisors, there are our student advisors, there are our operational staff, our IT staff. The culture of care even expands to operations to ensure that we as faculty have what we need to do our jobs to the best of our abilities, or even better to our ability. So they have a culture of care, of caring for the faculty as we deliver the products to our student stakeholders. And speaking of our student stakeholders, we have the actual market for UAGC. They are the stakeholders of the organization that traded money for the product of knowledge and application. I deem this role obviously I shouldn't say the most important, but it's the most vital, because without those stakeholders, we wouldn't have an organization. They have an expectancy to not only get educated, but they have an expectancy to also feel loved and cared for. As I actually looked at when I was in the Q&A session, it is about caring for them when they can't readily just produce work for us, or they can't have more time for that final project. They keep coming back because as customers, they'll know I'll get a good experience, which I will say is an excellent selling point, because here I don't have to worry about not getting my degree because I have a family emergency, or I'm unfeeling well, or I have a family member who's in trouble or is sick. I can come to UAGC, and because of the culture of care, I am able to actually come to a product that makes me feel good as a customer or a client. Next slide, please. Now I want to get into more of the long principles, applying the actual principles. So the behavior, attitudes, and thinking of UAGC's workforce and leadership do support and reinforce the culture of care to ensure that everyone psychologically or in perception feels and concludes they are receiving as well as reciprocating. So examples that I have thought of to implement this even more than UAGC is doing already as a team. So gratitude sharing circle, like organizing regular team meetings where members can share something they are grateful for about another person's help or support, encouraging a focus on positive interactions and making people feel valued. Then there's Caught Up in the Action board, which I thought about for our Canvas discussion boards for each class, where we set up a board where students and staff can post notes or pictures when they see someone helping others or someone doing a kind act. I saw you being super kind in the discussion and the assignment, and letting everyone else know too, which I see we do on our discussion board or assignments to see that students are getting loved. And then finally, what I love and what I also introduced in my other educational ventures is peer-to-peer coaching. Now, I say, and I almost forgot to put peer-to-student, because coaching is starting to become really more needed, because it's not enough to give information. it's also enough to how to help someone apply that information. Just because you know how to do statistics, that doesn't mean that you can put it on paper, or you can put it in a presentation, or you can explain to another human being how to do statistics. It's putting up people from different parts of our education, different parts of the organization, to where we can support each other. Like, for example, Michelle can put me in a one-on-one. Actually, she did this at a one-on-one, and she checked on me, but she also gave me advice on how to manage self, and it had nothing to do with UAGC. It was more or less like she saw something that I was struggling with, and I didn't even know I was struggling with, and that's where the session focused on. So that's an example of leader to peer, but peer-to-peer coaching can also help us to really grow and evolve, and these sessions can be impromptu, to where we're putting aside our professionalism, and really it's just one human being to another, so that it can add to the value of our professionalism and putting out a great product. Next slide, please. Communicate. I'm gonna go through these really quickly because I don't want to make sure I have enough time for Q&A. So communicate, and I looked at these roles very differently, but I will go through these very quickly. So in communication, faculty, training faculty in effective communication, leading to better student engagement and learning outcomes. IO would suggest developing clear communication protocols and feedback mechanisms between faculty and students. Having staff training programs could ensure all staff are equipped to share information transparently and responsibly, which aligns with organizational behavior principles. And then finally, facilitating student development and communication skills can be integral to their professional success, offering workshops on communication, active listening, based on how principles can support this growth. So that idea that I really focused on, because what if we can give students more of that guidance outside of knowledge? Really preparing them for the workforce, for engaging in their jobs, and actually applying to what we've taught them. That's what they look for. I have a couple of questions with students asking me, well, Dr. Simpson, what do I do with statistics exactly? And we had an analytics conversation, right? And I made it practice to ensure that I prepare them for the workforce, because we know basically how employers are. Like, yes, you have a degree, great, but so do 2,000 other people. What makes you different? And as an educator, I also want to go outside of my role as an advisor. I mean, I had the experience before, why not share it to make our organization much more as a partnership, as a learning partner, more than a professor. And that's what motivates me through my culture of care experience to do for other students. Next slide, Dr. Fair. Then we have advocate. Faculty be encouraged to include diverse perspectives in curriculum development and classroom discussions. Staff, train for advocate for student needs and diversity, aligning with human resource management practices to create equitable processes for all university stakeholders. And students becoming advocates for themselves and their peers that can develop leadership skills, which is also a key focus of biopsychology. See, as an advocate in the culture of care, when we see something wrong, we speak up, but we speak up out of love. Where we want to be better. Every interaction that I've had with all UAGC faculty and staff, everything is going up. Stock seems to just go up more and more and more, because we want to see each other get better, but that has a skills and competency impact as well. Because if I'm correct in my assumptions, that every time we come out of a meeting or every time we come out of a training, it's actually implemented. It's not just, another corporate training, another thing where we have to listen and sit through this. No, we actually apply it, and leadership makes sure it aligns. Because I notice we don't take trainings on fire safety, or we don't take trainings on just general cybersecurity awareness. Everything is aligned with advocating for a better and safer organization, which is impacted or led through our culture of care. Next slide, please. Then we have student-centered, which is to business, outer business, stakeholder-centered. Be encouraged to apply evidence-based teaching methods. We try and we see what works, and we try to build on what works. But innovate, don't get it mistaken, innovation is not missing from this, because again, we go back to the culture of care of everything being inclusive. If a faculty member has an idea, it's always at least heard. It's never criticized, never shut down. Staff, with being guided to prioritize student services and success, aligning with IO Psychology's emphasis on employee roles and job design that support the organization's primary stakeholders. I've noticed even with my own job description, everything pointed toward stakeholder success and students. I'm getting better with every responsibility that I have. It's sharpening my own skills, so I, as a product manager, can ensure that the students that I serve have a great stakeholder experience. I identify them as not only learners, but paying customers. They want to walk away with something they can use, so they invest in UAGC, not other universities, to ensure and carry this out so that they can become successful. And speaking of students, enabling students to apply input on policies and programs that can create a feedback loop that improves their educational experience, reflecting engagement and satisfaction models. I haven't seen this done yet, but the way the culture of care is structured here, if a student can have an impact on an HR policy that is currently in place, or a learning policy with faculty or staff, or a training policy, it makes us that much better, because we're listening to our students, our stakeholders, because they want to see what they've invested in, which is us and the university as a whole, be better. We listen to our stakeholders, and that's fiercely important in a culture of care that is properly, I think, exhibited. Next slide, please, Doctor. Respect. Counsel with faculty, counsel, coach, or consult to foster respectful classroom environments. I was taught by, well, not taught, but I was encouraged by Dana Dillard to implement this, especially. If a student didn't quite get something right as a stakeholder, what I do was encourage them not only on how to do it, but what they did right. Because positive reinforcement in any job is a part of both employee motivation and stakeholder motivation, where we are putting together a structure of trust to say that, you know what, I can go to Dr. Simpson because I know he won't put me down, but instead he'll build me up and make me think better. I look forward to him, and I want to develop a relationship with him because I feel an area of safety, one of Maslow's hierarchical needs. So we're creating a positive, inclusive, and productive learning space in Canvas with positive feedback that gives the student much more encouragement. Another physiological need in Maslow's hierarchy. So again, we're reinforcing that they have a safe space to grow. Staff interactions with students and faculty can be shaped by respect-driven policy, informed of organizational culture and climate. Policies is here in UAGC is not something you just snatch off the internet and just put together. No, every policy is aligned with the culture of care, because again, policies which are hygienic from Herzberg's theory, which normally would be, I have to do this, but I'm going to do the bare minimum, but which is quite the opposite. These policies I actually learn from, and they're committed to ensure that I'm better. They're not limiting and they're not punishing. They more are developing and a part of the human development process within the workplace. And then teaching students about respect in professional settings can be a part of leadership and personal development programs. Another kind of think outside the box that we can institute beyond the classroom. I mean, yes, once you finish within your class, how could you implement it? How could you be a leader in it? How could you teach others about it? My goal is to turn students into teachers to give other people that don't have access to the information a chance to be that stakeholder from that student leader that has the knowledge. Next slide, please. Empowerment. And I got to rush through this a little bit. So empowering faculty could involve support with their research endeavors and professional and development, aligning with continuous learning and growing within the workplace. Continuous improvement, which is a Kaizen term used in manufacturing, is something that I think UAGC would definitely benefit from, as everything is continuously being looked at, improved, advanced, modernized. Staff empowerment can come from the participative design making of recognition programs. This organization loves to reward and award, and that is so positively reinforcing that it is just out of this world, interstellar. And students can be empowered through leadership opportunities and curricular activities that can promote skill development, echoing self-efficacy and agency in one's role. Again, when we teach them something, are we also teaching skills as well? Right? How can statistics be good in communication? How can research be good in time management? Remember, it's not about only what you know, but how can it be applied? Next slide, Dr. Farrow. We may have to skip this one. So next slide. So really quickly, financial implications, which I am kind of I'm sorry, go back to that slide. Go back to the slide real quickly. I actually want to go over finance because I think that what we do as an organization does have a definite impact, have financial positive and negative implications. So the positive, which is increased retention. A student wants to stay here and spend more money with us because, again, they're getting what they need, but then we may be giving more incentives and more bonuses to say that, well, you know what, I never thought I learned communication here. I never thought I learned the skill here, so it would make sense for me to keep investing in UAGC and its faculty and staff. There's also greater productivity, turning those investment dollars or having a return on investment to actually apply what they've learned, which goes out and presents opportunities to other potential students to come and enroll with us, which means obviously more revenue that's coming in and probably enhanced reputation. UAGC is becoming a culture of care brand that not only students learn from, but maybe other organizations can look at to see what we're doing and replicate it for themselves. So I see a leadership institute maybe being born from this, if not one already. Then there's the negative. The negative are implementation costs. The culture of care is a peace-driven initiative, and peace costs a lot of money, well into the billions, if you look at our Department of Defense spending and things of that nature. So it might require significant investment in training and development programs, which I wouldn't say are inexpensive. There's also potential for misallocation. Not to say that we get everything right here, but we have to be mindful of where we allocate all of those dollars and if it makes sense to invest in one program versus another program. We got to look at factors like the return on investment, what stakeholders are impacted, how they will be impacted, and what's the likelihood they may return. And finally, resistance to change. Not every human being actually continues and connects with that, right? So we may not get the return that we need, but that's something we need to and should watch closely. Next slide and last slide. So I'm not going to go over this last slide, but I want to kind of keep this in front of you and as recommendations and things or subjects to think about from an industrial organizational psychology perspective. What I see in UAGC that is done really well are workplace motivation, job analysis and design, work-life balance, team dynamics and effectiveness, employee well-being, occupational health, and like I said from Kaizen, continuous improvement. And these are some questions, rhetorical questions, that I would like for you to think about as the culture of care moves within the workplace, the workforce, and stakeholder engagement and management. Like I said, you will be getting a copy of this presentation, so these questions will definitely be available, and this is something we can ask each other or our students. And the last slide, Dr. Fair, I think, is the fin. I know I talked a lot, and I try to squeeze it as much as I can, but are there any other questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts to where anything was learned?
I am Dan Augusto. I'm one of the co-facilitators here. Anybody who wants to ask any questions verbally or on video or audio, you can do that, or if you want to post them in the chat, I will relay them. In the meantime, I'll ask a question or two. Is there a way to adapt our training and development programs that'll support the psychological needs for competence, autonomy, and relatedness among UAGC community?
We have to look at our training and learning and development as a theme, Dan. I think that's kind of the best here. Putting a brand on our training and learning, I think is paramount. That's going to align with making us better and making us much more, I guess, advanced within the culture of care, if we put it in perspective. Because I do see somewhat of loose trainings and loose learnings here or there, but if we institute it, I believe that faculty and staff can honestly, not to say they look forward to it, but they'll know what they'll get out of it, the same as what students get out of learning. So if we apply what we do to students to do to faculty and staff as well, I think that would be a reality.
Thanks. Is there a way that you can think of that we could basically measure, operationalize trust in an organization?
I would say survey, and having what they call it, pulse surveys. I do think that's such a good tool, and I used to use pulsing and study pulses when I worked as a corporate consultant. Having employees just consistently check on each other, and obviously this was done through software, but check on each other, connect with each other, give each other kudos, just say, you know what, hey Dan, I saw that you did a good project. I just want to say way to go. This is done outside through email though, because email is a clutter and it's full of business, but it's not focused on the actual person. I think it's more or less having something centralized to where we can check on each other, give each other kudos, reward, award, reinforce good behaviors, so that strengthens the pillars of the culture of care.
That sounds good. On the kind of on a less positive spin on the trust and how we might measure it. In my experience, when a unit doesn't have trust, there tend to be a lot more sort of complaints escalated because people don't trust each other's intentions, and so they misread each other and they misinterpret what's being said. And so I'd be interested to see if there's any outcome on if there's an organization that has, decent amount of complaints, if there's any tracking for, was it a miscommunication? Because you'd have to establish it, but I would almost think that the miscommunication could be a proxy for lack of trust in some ways, or start to be anyway. But
right, yeah. The thing is, when you have mistrust, it's like employees go silent. Obviously, I'm not going to say, just for example, UAGC is the worst organization on this earth. I'm definitely not going to broadcast that because I don't want to get fired.
Right.
But then I start doing my job less, then I start showing up less, because what we don't say, we do. In other words, my actions speak a lot louder than my words do. I start missing meetings, I start really being rebellious, and those are telltale signs that there is a lot of miscommunication or a broken trust between employee/professional and the organization as a whole.
That makes sense. I appreciate it. Well, we are at our time now. It looks like we are at the 20-minute after the hour mark. So, do you have any final takeaway comments for the audience before we shut it down?
Yes, just one. You all make the organization better. UAGC on paper is a 501c3, but that's just the legal designation. What every human being here is what makes the organization. So the students don't see the paperwork, the legal, they see these faces, these relationships, these developments, and most of all, these humans.
Well, thank you very much. That was a really interesting presentation. So, everyone, we have recently posted another sort of a link to another option for a presentation in a little bit, and hopefully we'll see you there. So, thanks a lot, Dr. Simpson. This has been really educational.
Thank you.
Good job, Leroy.
Thank you.